There's something in ancient symbols that goes beyond form. A hieroglyph in the temple of Karnak, a rune carved into Nordic stone, a Tibetan mandala drawn in colored sand. They all seem to pulse with a presence that archaeology or history can't explain. They're not just drawings, they feel like portals, and every time we look at them, we feel a subtle shiver, as if something inside us recognizes them, even though we don't know why. Why does this happen? Could it be that these symbols weren't made just to be seen, but to be felt? And if they aren't representations of the sacred, but encoded frequencies of wisdom in visual form, the question is, what happens when we decode ancient symbols, and why, in doing so, does something within us seem to awaken? For millennia, certain civilizations didn't write with words, but with forms. In ancient Egypt, hieroglyphs were called Medu-Netia, words of the gods, and weren't seen as ordinary writing, but as a living language, capable of invoking invisible forces. Priests trained for decades not just to read them, but to breathe with them, aligning their inner state with that of the one who created them. In Hindu tradition, the yantra is a geometric design that, when meditated upon, produces transformations in the practitioner's energy field. The Sri Yantra, for example, isn't decorative art, it's a consciousness machine, designed to tune the mind to the universe's frequency. And among indigenous peoples of the Americas, symbols painted on rocks or fabrics weren't art. They were records of visions, maps of altered states, codes to access parallel dimensions. But why do these shapes, drawn thousands of years ago, still hold power over us? Could it be that they were designed to survive time, to outlast the destruction of civilizations, the loss of languages, the forgetting? After all, a symbol doesn't depend on translation. It acts directly on the unconscious. It's like a musical note. You don't need to understand theory to be moved by it. A circle, a spiral, a cross, an 8-petaled flower. Each vibrates at a frequency the body recognizes before the mind does. And perhaps that's why they were guarded so carefully. During the Middle Ages, the Church demonized many of these symbols, calling them idols or witchcraft. But what it feared wasn't the image, it was what it awakens, because a true symbol isn't worshipped, it's activated, and when activated, it changes the one who looks. In the Renaissance, alchemists like Giordano Bruno and Athanasius Kircher dared to study these forgotten codes. Bruno spoke of living images that could inhabit the mind and transform reality. Kircher, while deciphering hieroglyphs, not always accurately, claimed they weren't writing, but keys of light, devices that, when contemplated, released knowledge directly into the soul. This idea survives in traditions like Kabbalah, where the tree of life isn't a theoretical diagram but an energetic map that, when visualized with intention, reorganizes the inner centers of being. Even in modern psychology, Carl Jung recognized the power of archetypal symbols, like the circle, the square, the labyrinth, as manifestations of the collective unconscious. He said that dreaming of a symbol isn't coincidence, it's the spirit trying to communicate in a language the rational mind cannot corrupt. Welcome to the silent, profound world of codes that never die, because they were never made for the eyes, but for the soul. Now ask yourself, what if ancient symbols aren't messages from the past, but frequencies from the future? As if ancient civilizations had encoded wisdom that could only be understood when humanity was ready. As if they had left signs in stone, not to be read, but to be activated in moments of crisis, transition, awakening. This makes us reflect on how time may not be linear. Perhaps it's cyclical, and symbols are anchor points between cycles. When we look at the Eye of Horus, for example, we're not just seeing an Egyptian amulet, we're tuning into a frequency of protection, inner vision, healing, and this isn't metaphor. Bioenergetic studies show that simply contemplating certain symbols can alter brain patterns, slow heart rate, induce deep meditative states, as if the body knows what the mind still doesn't understand. But how exactly does this happen? Let's go deeper. In esoteric tradition, every true symbol is a visual mantra. Just as a repeated sound can elevate consciousness, a contemplated form can do the same. The circle, for instance, is the symbol of eternity, infinity, the immanent divine. When you fix your gaze on it, something inside you calms, because it represents the end of time, the return to center. The spiral, on the other hand, is movement, evolution, ascent. When you look at it, you might feel a slight internal spin, as if your energy begins to move. The cross, meanwhile, isn't just a religious symbol. In its oldest forms, like the Egyptian ankh, it represents the union of vertical and horizontal, spirit and matter, and when you contemplate it with intention, you may feel a subtle alignment between your head and heart, Visualize yourself standing before a stone wall in an underground chamber. By torchlight, you see a sequence of ancient symbols: a serpent in a spiral, an eye within a triangle, a circle divided into 8 parts. You don't know what they mean, but as you focus on the first, something shifts. Your breath slows. A deep inner silence settles. As you move to the next, you feel a gentle warmth in your chest. The third makes your forehead vibrate slightly. And then, without understanding, you know, not with your mind, with your body. It's as if the symbols weren't there to be deciphered, but to be lived. As if each were a note in a song your being already knows, but you've never listened with full attention. This makes us reflect. Symbolic language may be humanity's oldest form of communication. Before speech, before writing, there was drawing, and that drawing didn't tell stories, it invoked states. A shaman painting an animal on rock isn't making art, he's calling its energy, its spirit, its strength. A Hindu temple covered in mandalas isn't decorated, it's tuned. Each symbol is an antenna pointed at a specific frequency of the cosmos. And when we enter that space, we're not just seeing, we're being tuned. But are we ready to understand this truth? Because if symbols are frequencies, then it's not enough to look at them, we must be in them. We must quiet the mind, open the heart, allow the form to resonate with the soul. A common mistake today is thinking that decoding a symbol means translating its historical meaning, but that's just the surface. The core is the experience. It's what happens inside you when you contemplate it. A circle may mean eternity in a book, but when you gaze at it with presence, it may bring a deep sense of peace, as if all time dissolves. A labyrinth may be a geometric drawing, but as you follow it with your eyes, it may induce a light trance, like a meditation in motion. Imagine for a moment that you're in an ancestral temple at twilight. The walls are covered in symbols you've never seen, yet they feel familiar. You walk in silence, and each step seems to tune you to a different frequency. At one point, there's a symbol that seems to pulse faintly. You approach. It has no name, no explanation. But as you look at it, something opens within you, a memory, a knowing, a remembrance of who you were before birth. It doesn't matter. What matters is that, for the first time, you're not seeking wisdom, you're recognizing a wisdom that was already within you. And the symbol didn't give it, it merely awakened it. Like a flame that never dies. Even in the darkness of the unconscious, these codes remain. Because they don't depend on belief, they don't need faith. They work like a law of nature, like gravity. You don't need to believe in gravity to fall. And you don't need to believe in a symbol to be affected by it. You just need to look with presence. And in that gaze, something transforms. Now ask yourself, what if the true sacred writing isn't made of words, but of forms? What if the ancients didn't want to tell us stories, but to prepare us for higher states of consciousness? Because a symbol doesn't teach, it activates. It doesn't explain, it connects. And perhaps that's why they were hidden, distorted, forgotten. Because if everyone knew that a simple drawing could elevate the soul, who would need churches, books, teachers? The power would be in the hands of anyone who knew how to look with attention. But how does this connect to our modern life? We're surrounded by symbols, logos, app icons, traffic signs. But most of them were designed to inform, not to transform. They're dead symbols. Meanwhile, the ancient ones are alive. And perhaps that's why we feel so disconnected. Because our minds are saturated with forms that don't nourish the soul. But when we encounter a true symbol, a mandala, a hieroglyph, a rune, something in us responds. It's as if a dormant part awakens, and in that moment we feel a flicker of belonging, of recognition, of home. Visualize yourself before an ancient parchment, opened on a dark wooden table. On it, a single symbol, drawn in red ink. You don't know what it means, but as you fix your gaze, you feel a gentle pulse in the center of your chest. Your breath aligns, time seems to slow, and then, without warning, an image appears in your mind. A mountain covered in mist, a temple at the top, a door slightly ajar. You didn't create this image, it came. And you know, somehow, that the symbol invoked it, not as illusion, but as remembrance. As a portal opened by a silent key. This makes us reflect. True wisdom isn't accumulated, it's remembered. And symbols are triggers of that remembrance. They don't bring something from outside, they awaken something from within, like a mirror that reveals what we've been avoiding. And perhaps that's why the ancients hid them in temples, in rocks, in secret manuscripts, not to deny knowledge, but to protect those not yet ready. Because seeing a symbol with your eyes is one thing, being seen by it is another. But are we ready for this? Because if ancient symbols are frequencies of lost wisdom, then decoding them isn't an intellectual act, It's an act of courage. It's allowing something ancient, deep, perhaps even unsettling, to enter you. It's like opening a door that's never been opened, and on the other side, there are no answers, only transformation. Now ask yourself, have you already seen one of these symbols in a dream, in a meditation, in a sudden moment of silence? And if it wasn't coincidence, but a call, an invitation to return to a language you once spoke before you forgot? Because perhaps humanity hasn't lost connection with the sacred, we've only forgotten the alphabet. Like a flame that never dies, even in the darkness of the unconscious, this knowledge remains. In ruined temples, in recurring dreams, in the drawings children make without knowing why. And every time you look at an ancient symbol and feel a shiver, it's not just memory, it's reconnection. It's the past whispering to the present. You still know how to read this. The seeker's journey is like an ancient scroll slowly unrolling, revealing symbols that feel familiar, like memories from other lives. Each revelation is a candle lit in the temple of the mind, illuminating corners we never knew existed. And at the end of this path, we don't find answers. We find gazes. Gazes of symbols that have seen us all along, that waited, that remained, and that, even now, are here, silent, waiting for you to look with attention. Thank you for your curiosity and courage to walk these untrodden paths, for listening not just with your ears, but with your soul, for allowing yourself to be touched by ancient truths, forgotten memories, forms that pulse with life of their own. Are you ready to take the next step? Remember, every ending is just the beginning of a new journey of awareness.